Hey, what is up, SatsMate Stackers? Today I'm going to talk about persisting your Bitcoin buys when you're fearful or when you're scared or when times look like they're getting pretty rough. Now, as you guys are aware, over the past couple of weeks, we saw tremendous volatility in the market. And I honestly don't think this will go away very quickly. I think we're going to see more of this volatility, more people get shaken out, and who knows, we may even go into a recession. But what you get through the other side of that can be quite rewarding. So I think at the end of the day, I think we need to sometimes take a step back and have someone talk sense to us about why we need to persist our buying of all assets. But I am a Bitcoiner, and I pretty much am indicating that I'm talking for myself just about Bitcoin. But you need to persist when you're fearful, because when everyone else is scared and selling and moving to cash, that's when you have an opportunity to take advantage of the market by going heavier into the asset. So, some of the biggest days of gains are after those huge pullbacks. So, for example, and I'm sure you guys recall this, but the market literally crashed like 5%, like 3-4 days in a row or more. And it was absolutely insane. But there was a one day, it was last week, where the market shot up like 12%. It was the biggest gain I think I've ever seen in the market of all time. And it's one of those things where if you were to have sold, you're missing on that 12% one day gain, right? So that's why it's critical to not get so emotional when the market is really bumpy and when times are tough. So, that is key. And do you ever feel like that knot in your stomach or that worry or concern you have when you're investing? So that headache, that knot in the stomach, that feeling in the throat, that's often a result from a fear of loss, right? You have this flight or fight sense where you're like, okay, I need to go heavier or I need to run and I need to sell. And so I think many people, oftentimes they'll end up selling because they have that fear of loss, when in reality they should lean into it and try to go heavier into the asset. So far too many of us, I strongly believe, we buy really, really heavy during the fear of missing out. So when Bitcoin was 100, 105,000, or a few years ago when it was trading at 70, people were FOMOing in. I remember my friend told me someone sold his house to buy 6 Bitcoin. But guess what happened after that? He sold his house for 6 Bitcoin. And the price went from 69,000 to 16,000. I don't know if he held on to those, but I guarantee you if he did, it was probably a pretty painful ride down. And obviously now I'm sure he's sitting pretty if he didn't sell, but still, that's painful to go through that. We need to listen to the famous Warren Buffett quote about being greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy. When everyone is talking about Bitcoin, when everyone's talking about Nvidia and all these leverage plays, that's when you should probably take a step back and be like, okay, there's a lot of froth in the market. There's a lot of people hyping up all this stuff that's happening. Maybe I should take a step back and start building my cash position. There's nothing wrong with building a cash position. Now, cash over the long run, several year periods, 2-3 year periods, is not good. But there's nothing wrong with having a decent amount of dry powder in case things take a turn for the worse, right? Because you don't know nothing is guaranteed in this world, right? And so if the market takes a big drawdown, it feels really nice having a clip of cash, right? And if you're just all in Bitcoin, or even you're leveraged all in Bitcoin, that's fine. But you may miss an opportunity to get cheaper sats if you don't have that cash or that income on the side. We really have to do what the opposite of what we feel is. And I think at a minimum, it's not selling and caving to the fear. So when things are super uncertain and, tariffs are getting escalated through the roof and all this bad stuff is happening, that's the very moment that I think we need to lean into our fear and confront it head on. Because it's very easy to, do what everyone else does and just sell into it. But, over the long run, that may not be a good idea. In fact, I know people that it was peak fear. They bought hundreds of shares of Nvidia for $80, and they're already up like 30%, 25, 30%. I don't know. I think it's trading at 115 a share right now, but they're up a significant 20, 30 bucks per share right now since they bought it. And it's just a week. It's just a week. And they're up that much. So if they would have sold their assets, and they would be not in the best position, but they took a risk and they made a quick buck, right? So you gotta lean into the market sometimes and have that feeling of greed when others are fearful. So like persisting during this too, like not just being like, oh, I'm just gonna make a quick buck and then sell out. No, like really leaning into it is something that I've noticed. A lot of these people that have a lot of money, they love the volatility. That's like the best moment. That's the best market conditions for these people. So like, I'll give an example. In 2020, the market, it fell, the circuit breakers were going off, and this was in March of 2020. And I just remember seeing my portfolio get eviscerated, guys. It was horrible. I just remember watching it, and I was just so sad to watch all the money I made just go away. But like looking back, I could have picked up Nvidia or like certain stocks for like pennies on the dollar for where I pick them up now. Literally, I could have picked up Apple for like 100. I could have picked up, Bitcoin for $3,000. I could have picked up, you name it. I could have picked up so many different things, and I didn't. And like at the time, it was so fearful. I remember being in the moment, seeing my net worth literally drop 30, 40%. But that I should have just taken what excess cash, I don't know how much I had, 15, 20 grand, and bought 4 Bitcoin or bought anything, just any asset, because all the assets, they ended up surging because of all the money printing in the years that followed. So we have to sometimes take our emotions out of the investing, because it's easy to just be like scared and then like sit on our hands, and then before you know it, time passes by and we're not in the best position then. So like, in my opinion, I honestly think, guys, it's important to have like whether you're stocks, if you're a stock guy, or for me, I'm a Bitcoiner, but it's good to have like a 70 to 90% stock and or Bitcoin position, and then a 10 to 30% cash allocation. Maybe more if you're more conservative, maybe less if you're more risky. But having that cash on the side provides the cushion to buy heavier when the market's down. It's so easy to be deploying heavier when times are great, but when the times pull back, you got to have that dry powder ready. You got to have it ready, because I see people right now, I see them all the time on X or on Reddit, and they're like, buy the dip with what money? And it's kind of funny, like these are funny memes, but it's like true. These people don't have money because they were deploying at the tops, or they're already in debt paying off their loans for their Bitcoin buys or their asset buys. So I think like we as people need to take a step back and really try to build up our dry powder, whether that's through second or third incomes, whether that's through some type of other side hustle. I just think it's important to build that up. Now, we got to be prepared when the times get tough. I lost my job, guys, and I know I told you guys this story, but I lost my job and I didn't see it coming. I literally was blindsided right in the holidays, right when Christmas came, and I didn't have income for 3 months. And I'm thankful that I think I had like 15, 20,000 at the time. Not a lot, but Bitcoin was at $16,000 a coin. And yes, I stacked, but I didn't stack as hard as I could have, because I didn't have a job. I literally didn't have an income, and I was not doing well then. So I just think it's really important, guys, that we are prepared when the times get tough. We do have dry powder. I don't want to sell my Bitcoin. I know you guys don't want to sell your Bitcoin or assets or stocks or whatever, but having that side income or that side money can help you weather the storm. And I was able to weather that unemployment, and I ended up coming out ahead because of that. But it still would have been nice to have, another 50 grand cash sitting around, so then I could have bought more coins or what have you. So just know we got to be prepared, and we know the times are getting tough because a lot of stocks are trading at all-time highs, and companies are starting to pull back on the spending. I'm seeing it working for a large company. They're starting to pull back spending, pull back the T&E, and I think it may get worse before it gets better. But I think it's important too that we understand, hey, what are we actually buying? If you're buying Bitcoin, it's correlated to the NASDAQ, guys. It's still a high risk play. Now, I think over the long run, it will decouple. I think it'll decouple this or next year. But you can't buy Bitcoin being like, oh, it's a store of value and it's digital gold. While I do think it's digital gold over longer runs of time, I don't think it trades like a commodity like gold over short runs. So when people say, oh, like buy Bitcoin, it's a store of value, it's like, yeah, but over what time horizon, right? So I think it's important what people understand what they own and what it can do, how fast it can move in one way or the other. And maybe it's not for your 85-year-old grandma. Maybe it's for someone that, is still working and still has an income. I don't know. I think Bitcoin is for everyone, but I think many people need to understand what it is before they buy it. And, I'll say this, like making a fortune in Bitcoin is not easy at all. You got to stay the course. It's so easy to get shaken out with FUD from every angle, but over the long run, you can look at the mempool, you can look at the code. It's not easy, but that's why the gains are so good when they're good, right? Like when it pumps up to several $100,000, people will be like, you got lucky. It'd be like, no, like you don't know what I went through. You don't see all my gray hair right now, but why do I have gray hair? Or the nights where I couldn't sleep, and I think we all need to understand that we need to stay the course with the things we believe in. And it's not easy. It's not easy for everyone, but I think if we can persist and we can stay the course, we will be successful. And to make sure to keep staying relevant and watching the most recent news about what's happening in the space, because things can change on a dime, especially if capital tightens even further. Bitcoin's never been through its own recession. It was born out of the 2008 recession. So it'll be very interesting if we do go through a recession, what will happen to Bitcoin. In my opinion, we're already in one. But then again, we'll see. We'll see what we end up calling this one, because it's a very interesting time we're in. But guys, please be sure to comment, rate, subscribe. Make sure to support the channel by clicking the links in the description below. Again, persist your Bitcoin buys when others are fearful. It's so important that we study this asset and we keep going for what we believe in. And again, I appreciate you guys as always. I'll see you in the next one.